The real problem with police in this country is, in my opinion, not any sort of systemic racism. It is a systemic lack of accountability. But let me give you a good story. Back on March 17th, if you saw the live video I did with Kentucky attorney Chris Wiest, he showed us a video of an excessive force case that he's litigating in the federal courts in Kentucky that showed clearly force being used by a police officer and clearly excessive force being used. And then he showed us videos from the depositions of the two officers involved where they denied that any force was used. And we sort of joked around about it at the time. It's a great video. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And really like to do some more with him as well. But he just texted me here a few days ago, I think it was on Friday, and says, you know what? They just criminally charged that officer for perjury. And in my probably 15 years of litigating police cases, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen anyone charged with perjury, especially police officers. I have seen it happen before, and this is apparently one of the few instances. But first, if you don't recall the footage, check out the video. This is actually surveillance footage from the Hornback home in Kentucky. And you see two police officers come in, and they're led by Mr. Hornback's father to where their son is. I guess there's a warrant out for him. And then, really within seconds, you see them begin to use force. They put him up against the wall and pretty much immediately take him down without any indication that he was fighting with them or attempted to strike them. And look, you see some punches, you see some hits. Clearly force is being used. I mean, that's undisputed, right? I mean, we can all agree that we see force being used on this video. Now, Mr. Hornback's father then leaves the room as this is going on, and he goes and he gets his cell phone, and you'll see that he returns with his cell phone. Now, this is, again, surveillance footage that belonged to the family. And it's fortunate that they did that because, again, you'll see that he returns with his cell phone, but when he comes back, he starts to, it's a little late, but even though it's a little late and he starts to film it, I believe they ended up deleting that footage. So they didn't know, they weren't aware that there was this surveillance footage in existence, and that's important here. So they didn't know the footage existed. And the next thing that happened was his attorney Chris Wiest filed a federal civil rights lawsuit for excessive force and served it on them and started the litigation process. And usually you have to turn over all of your evidence before you end up taking depositions. But through basically brilliant strategy, he ended up getting to take their depositions before he had to turn over his evidence. And so that made for the interesting situation where he got to question these police officers under oath about what they did, what they did not do, and they still weren't yet aware of this video. And that's really an awesome situation that is very difficult to set up in federal court. And I encourage you to watch the conversation that we had about this in that earlier video that I'll post the link in the description. But he provided us with the deposition footage where they were asked about this. So here is I believe this is the deposition of Thomas Zartorsky, who was one of the officers involved in this.
No, I understand, and I'm just trying to get to your recollection.
Right.
You indicated that you don't remember whether or not he was taken to the ground, right?
So I think that he was taken to the ground.
Do you know why?
I don't.
Okay. When he was taken to the ground, did you use any force on him?
No.
Did you ever strike him with any object?
No.
So that was the deposition footage showing Trooper Zartorsky. And here is the deposition footage, or at least a small portion of it, of the other trooper, James Cameron Wright. And you can hear Chris Wiest just setting this up beautifully so that he can knock it out of the park afterwards.
You wouldn't have to, but I'm not saying I did that.
Once you had him on the ground, did you strike or hit him with a closed fist at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Or any part of your body?
No, sir.
Okay. And the reason that you didn't do that is that there was no more force that was required at that point in time to have affected the arrest, right?
He did not need to be struck with my hands or any impact weapon, and also his mother.
So let's take a look at that again. Did you strike him with a closed fist or with your hands? I believe that is right there, striking him. He's on the right. Striking him with his hands. We clearly just saw it. And let's look at Czartoryski again. Okay, as you sit here today, is it your testimony that at no time did you strike him with an object? No. That's correct, right? In no time did you strike him with an object? No. Yet, there he was, on the left-hand side, striking him with an object. Well, maybe that's just not an object he's hitting him with. What else could it be? Well, it could be a thought, maybe. Maybe he's hitting him with a thought. And now for the good news, this link that Chris had sent me from the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting, July 9th, 2021. This former Kentucky trooper denied using force under oath. The video says he did. A former Kentucky state trooper has been criminally charged with perjury after denying under oath that he beat a man with a flashlight in April 2020. Now, I'll post a link to this story here in the description. Thomas Czartoryski was named in a lawsuit alleging troopers used excessive force against Alex Hornback while executing a bench warrant. The lawsuit also alleged that Hornback's parents recorded the officers beating him and that a trooper deleted the footage, but a home security video captured the incident. Okay, so he was caught in a lie. He was caught in a lie, and it appears that there has been accountability. So apparently he's been fired as well. Czartoryski was deposed under oath in January for Hornback's federal civil suit. Hornback's attorney, Chris Wiest, asked if he'd struck him with an object or used any other force. No, he said, I did not use force on him. The video shows that Czartoryski and Trooper James Cameron Wright meet Hornback in the family's basement. Hornback puts his hands on the wall, then within seconds, Wright forces him to the floor. Wright punched him with a closed fist. And remember, we see Wright doing it on the video. I mean, who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? We see it happening on the video, and yet we also hear him under oath saying that he did not do it. And I'm not sure if he was charged. Maybe the article gets to that. All right. Wright punched him with a closed fist. Czartoryski beat his legs 4 times with a flashlight. But a flashlight may not be an object. It could be like one of those Bill Clinton things. Like Bill Clinton might not believe that a flashlight is an object. It could just be something else, like maybe a thing. Wright then held Hornback on the floor for about 30 seconds with his left knee on the back of his neck. Okay, Hornback appeared compliant throughout the encounter. That's absolutely true, according to what I observed. All right, more good stuff. Court records show that the Kentucky State Police Internal Affairs Department investigated Czartoryski for 2 incidents where he used force in the month before Hornback's arrest. And if you watch the video where Chris and I are discussing this, he actually shows us those other videos. And you can kind of see, since Czartoryski was the one using the sort of, I don't want to say maybe non-masculine kind of hit, you see the exact same sort of technique being used in these other beating videos. Maybe that played a role in why they were willing to hold him accountable here. I don't know. In one incident, he kicked the suspect's lower body while he was on the ground, and numerous other officers had gained control of him. In the second, a week prior to Hornback's arrest, he struck a man with a flashlight 8 times. Certainly, he didn't strike him with an object. He struck him with a thing or flashlight 8 times after Wright pulled him from the car during a traffic stop. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Not always. Including one strike that investigators said came as the man was trying to stand up and comply. Now, good for investigators in Kentucky. Investigators found 2 violations: conduct unbecoming and excessive use of force, and suspended Zartorsky. Now, that was in the earlier case. Despite the fact that he testified under oath just 2 months later, Zartorsky said in his sworn statement that he didn't recall the suspension. Now, I believe he's been fired as well. I'll have to ask Chris about this, and maybe he'll come on and explain more. But what happened with the other guy? I mean, clearly he lied. I don't see why Zartorsky's lie was any worse than Wright's lie, except for, Zartorsky had these other incidents caught on video. So, can this officer that was charged get qualified immunity? No, he can't. You know why? Because these are criminal charges. Qualified immunity does not apply as a defense to allegations of criminal conduct, or at least in a criminal case. So that's not a defense there. Now, he could assert it in the federal civil rights lawsuit. Now, but he's not charged with perjury there. That's not what's alleged, though that will be an extremely useful fact that is true. He's charged with excessive force. So what's important in an excessive force case? So this is not a pretrial detainee. It's basically somebody who's being arrested who's not already in custody. You look at the basic Graham factors. Was this a dangerous person? What was he under arrest for? Was he actively resisting arrest or fighting with the officers? So the video basically, I believe, in my opinion, will seal this up, as we had discussed with Chris before. It shows that he's not actively resisting or fighting the officers, and in fact appears to be cooperative or compliant. Now, sometimes officers in those situations will say, well, yeah, what the video doesn't show is that he was tensing up or something like that. But, the video shows what it shows. And, it shows 2-on-1, a man who is presumed innocent. He's in his own home. His parents are watching. He undisputedly does not strike at, does not try to kick, does not try to punch any of the officers. It doesn't appear he tried to spit on them or anything like that. Now, he may have been saying something. A lot of times in these videos, they're running their mouths. But, basically you can just about say what you want. You can say what you want, and generally mere words alone are not sufficient to warrant this sort of a violent response. So, I mean, I've had cases where there's all sorts of awful things being said, but, you're not allowed as a police officer to lose your temper and violently attack a person in response to any words that he said. So it has to do with a basic self-defense sort of analysis. Did he pose a threat to these officers or anyone else? And if they thought he posed a threat, then why is that? Was it because of his criminal history, or the alleged crime that they were arresting him for, or based on something that happened at the scene? So it's undisputed what they were arresting him for. It's undisputed what his criminal history was. I don't even know all that, but and it's undisputed really what happened, almost undisputed, because it's caught on video. There's a U.S. Supreme Court case, Scott versus Harris, that says if law enforcement testimony clearly contradicts what's seen on the video, the court is allowed to go with what's on the video, because it's, they didn't say this, but it's, more credible than self-serving testimony from a police officer who's been alleged to have committed misconduct. And clearly that has been illustrated in this case, where both of these officers lied when they said that they didn't use force. And this has nothing to do with systematic racism, as you can see. Everyone appears to be the same race. This is a problem that's been around for a long time and transcends race, ethnicity, nationality. And it has to do with just living in the current police state, that we've chosen to create for ourselves, where, how many times have they gotten away with it? And they've been able to lie about it. And, fortunately here we have a rare case of accountability, because there was a lawyer who stepped in and forced the issue and did it in a really clever way, so as to sort of kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And I'm not just talking about the officers, but while he's proving excessive force, also proving that these guys are liars and are committing perjury. So good on the Kentucky investigators for at least taking action against this one guy. And I'm not sure about Wright, the other one. I'll have to ask Chris about that. But he's on video doing the same thing. So we'll have to have an update hopefully in the near future on this.